Today's New Yorker details the New York City that he knows and says it may not recover as it continues to grapple with the tripling effects of the coronavirus pandemic, along with the unrest that took place back in June and issues surrounding homelessness and crime.
Yes, so within the last few months, several residents have packed their bags to leave to nearby suburban areas or even to other states. So what does this mean for the future of the Big Apple? Joining us right now is author and entrepreneur James Altucher to talk more about this. Good morning. Thank you for being with us.
Morning. Thank you for having me on the show.
Okay, you're coming to us live from Florida. You're home away from home. You say You're a New Yorker. I'm sure you want to come back one day. I don't know if you will be allowed back after this article because it's pretty scathing on whether the city is going to be dead forever. And right now, it seems like you think that's what's going to happen.
Well, it's not necessarily what I think is going to happen. It's what's already happening. I mean, already right now, 30 to 40 to maybe 50% of restaurants and storefronts are closed forever. Like you walk around, it's not like see you soon signs, it's for lease, for rent signs. You also have office buildings that are completely empty because companies are moving workers to remote because the bandwidth is there now. People are having remote meetings. Companies are even more productive. And if you lose, Broadway's closed till next spring. If you lose all these different revenue bases, and meanwhile, deficits are going up, as you guys just pointed out in your last three segments, it's going to hit the city.
Right.
You're losing EMT workers, trash workers, MTA.
But
it's a problem.
But here's the thing. New York has bounced back before, right? You've compared it in your article. I read the article at length to 9/11 and the crime wave in the 70s and 80s. But you said this time is different. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's different because the world has never really experienced what we're experiencing now. But if you just compare it to some other things, New York was in tough times and it did come back.
You know what? New York City has never suffered through a 10 to 20% loss in population, which is what's going to happen now. I mean, already apartment vacancies are at an all-time high, and that's not even counting what's going to happen when 600,000 college students realize, oh, we don't need to, there's no on-campus education right now in New York City, so we don't have to live there. So what's going to happen to the landlords who had expected they make their living from renting to students? What happens to all the owners of all the office buildings when they go bankrupt, or the Broadway show houses or theaters? People, the entire economic ecosystem is in trouble.
Yeah, it's like a domino effect for sure, James. And I think
Yes.
you make some very valid points in this. I read it at length as well, and I was as I read it, I was like, oh wow, that's a really good point. Let's talk about the office buildings because that's the majority of New York, right? We see all of these office buildings where people were working in tight quarters, but now because of bandwidth and Zoom and all this technology, we can work from home. But don't you think at some point businesses are going to say, yes, this working from home is great, but isn't it more productive for us to be together so that we can talk? There's synergy. There's even competition in being around each other, whereas being apart, you don't have that.
That's a great point, but there's a couple of things going on. One is a lot of businesses are unsure about bringing employees back because they don't even know what the liability issues are if employees get sick from the virus.
But if there's a vaccine, this could change the whole game.
True. But if they realize, oh my gosh, our costs are going down so much because people are not really that much less productive using Zoom. Bandwidth has never been this good before. The employees are gone forever. The companies will stop renting the office space.
James, I love this conversation because I feel like people at home are screaming at their television. And you got some pushback on it. Someone said the only thing that died was convenience and complacency. You left New York. You're in Florida. So, why did you leave? And
Sure.
there are New Yorkers who are walking around and saying, you know what? Yes, this is terrible. But all the things you're referencing are things that every city are kind of going through right now. So is every city going to be dead?
Well, I think a lot of cities are going to be a lot of the first-tier cities, LA, San Francisco, New York City, Chicago, are going to be in trouble. We're going to see a revival of second- and third-tier cities in the U.S. And let's not forget, opportunity is not going away. Opportunity is going to be dispersed throughout the entire country instead of just one or two hotspots. But look, I was in New York City throughout the pandemic. I left a week ago. I live in New York City. I own a comedy club / bar in New York City. So I'm not going anywhere, and I want things to come back. But right now already, again, the restaurants are out of business. The office buildings are 90% empty, even though they don't have to be. Commercial real estate's in trouble. Evictions are going to happen, so all the landlords are in trouble. And then let's not forget, most importantly, New York deficits are going to skyrocket, and tax revenues are going to plummet. And that math just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like you need a city to. New York City is a great city because of all the services it provides, and the welfare and the social services, EMT, everything. So this is going away for a while, and there's no real solution.
That's the key word, for a while, not forever, because I am an eternal optimist, and I like to believe that while we're all struggling right now, that this city is the melting pot of the world, right? It is where people come to make it. It's where their dreams come alive.
Well,
it's where
some might even say this is a great opportunity to invest in New York City because you're going to get a deal right now.
I just think
not yet.
Not yet, but when you look at the things,
first.
you cannot look at the Statue of Liberty in the harbor, right, and say, okay, it's dead forever. This is where people came to make it and thrive, and I think that one day they will. James, I urge people to read it. This is a debate we could have all day and a conversation I'd be willing to have offline
I like your
as well.
optimism.
Yes. Thank you for joining us this morning.
I don't think he's changing his stance, though.
Me.
James, thank you so much. Because he does have some really valid points. And yeah, I agree with him to the extent that it is going to take a long time.